What's up, y'all? My name is JR, and for those of you who don't already know, I'm a huge movie and TV nerd. If you're new here, I appreciate you taking the time to check out my channel. I hope you consider sticking around and joining the film community I'm trying to build here on YouTube. So in today's video, I'm going to be giving my reaction and review of Sam Raimi's thriller film, Send Help. And just so you guys know, this video will contain mild spoilers, so if you haven't gotten out to the theater to see this film yet and you don't want to know anything that happens in it, you might want to exit this video now. And with that being said, no more wasting time. Let's get into it. Send Help is an American-made thriller film co-produced and directed by Sam Raimi and written by Damian Shannon and Mark Swift. The film stars Rachel McAdams and Dylan O'Brien as an employee and her boss, respectively, who become stranded on a desert island after a plane crash and attempt to survive while tension rises between them. Send Help premiered at the TCL Chinese Theater in Los Angeles, California on January 21st of this year and was released here in the United States by 20th Century Studios on January 30th. And so far, the film has received positive reviews from critics. In fact, at the time of the making of this video, the movie has a 94% on Rotten Tomatoes based on 170 critic reviews, with its popcorn meter currently sitting at 89% based on over 250 verified ratings. The movie has a Metascore of 76 on Metacritic based on just 33 critic reviews, with a user score of 6.8 based on 17 user ratings. And finally, the movie has a 7.2 out of 10 on IMDb with just over 4,300 ratings. Now, when I first heard about this film, I was fairly interested in seeing it, especially given that it was going to be released in the dog days of January. So I figured the film had a pretty good chance of being the best movie of the month. And seeing Rachel McAdams and Dylan O'Brien together like this was also something that I found to be fairly intriguing. And so I didn't get to go on Thursday for the previews like I typically do, but I decided to brave the crowds on Friday evening because that's just how interested I was in checking out this film. But after having watched the film, I thought the setup was extremely flawed, with the writers leaning a little too heavily into both Linda's disheveled appearance and her lack of people skills. And I also thought there was too much of a means to try to lean on her obsession with survivalist culture. The story here plods along in an extremely predictable fashion, but once Linda and Bradley wash up on the deserted island, that's when I felt like things really went left for this movie. Because the screenwriters spent the entirety of the rest of the movie essentially writing us in circles. Bradley is a jerk. Linda doesn't like it. She does something or refuses to do something in order to prove to Bradley how valuable she is given their circumstances. Bradley then, realizing the error of his ways, apologizes for his behavior. Rinse and repeat. I'm telling you, this goes on for the entirety of the film. We literally watch this cycle go through at 3 times. And that leads me to the character's behavior during this film. These characters spend the entirety of the movie, or damn well near the entirety of the movie, doing things that no person with any measure of common sense would do, given the current situation. And I remember sitting in the theater, staring up at the screen, literally for almost the entirety of the film going, why would a person who just had that happen do that? And unfortunately, the answer is the characters do these things because the screenwriters simply needed them to in order to progress the story. And I've always told you guys that that right there is a tenet of absolutely horrible screenwriting. If you spend the first act building characters, you show us who these people are. Then in the second act, you test those things that you've shown us about the characters. You know, for example, we see that Linda has a very, very, very big interest in survivalist culture. She even watches Survivor on TV, and we then find out she even submitted a video audition to be on Survivor. So Linda's survival skills are tested when she actually gets stranded on this island. Can she find water? Can she hunt and fish? Can she build shelter? And it turns out that she can do these things, even though she acts really shocked. Every time she completes a task, she jumps up and down and she's, clapping and applauding for herself as though she didn't know she could do these things, even though the writers have shown us that, this is like all she thinks about. So, it's kind of weird. And again, like I said, both of these people are fairly intelligent people, but they spend the entirety of the rest of the movie doing things that just don't make any sense. I'm going to make a much longer video on my main channel where I'm going to get into how I would have rewritten this film. There's so much wrong with this movie. How I would have rewritten this film had I been the person that was tasked to rewrite the script that we actually saw. So if you're interested in that video, that'll probably be posted in the next day or two. You can go to my main channel and you can check that out. But as we learn more and more about these characters, you start to realize that neither of them are particularly good people, but that there are definitely levels to this, right? There's actually one person that's far worse than the other. And in the interest of not spoiling the movie, I'm just going to leave it at that. But I will say it's not who we all would have thought it would be initially. And then if that's not bad enough, once we kind of see people's true colors kind of bubble to the surface, the screenwriters then attempt to try to coerce you, the audience, into rooting for the most horrible human being I've seen on screen so far this year. And now I will say this. I'm not going to put how bad this film is on the actors, right? I actually thought Rachel McAdams and Dylan O'Brien did a really good acting job. I think they did the best they could with what they were given. Now, I thought the writing at large was horrendous. The small writing was a bit better, but nowhere near good enough to make up for the terrible plot choices that were made here. I mean, absolutely, positively terrible choices. There were so many directions this film could have gone in, and I feel like they picked the absolute worst one. I thought the special effects were pretty bad, especially when it came to this 250-pound boar that Linda kills all by her damn it and manages to drag back to the camp. Oh, and let's not forget the fact that they eat the 250-pound boar in one fucking sitting, but I digress. And the ending of this film is maybe the most ridiculous contradiction I've seen in a movie so far this year. I'm not going to spoil it for you guys here, but gee whiz. Again, as a writer, everything that you have the characters say and do, eventually at some point in the film, you give us something that the characters say that kind of shows you what their character's goal is for the film. And so to have that character then renege on the actual goal without something having happened that's clear to all of us, as to why they changed their mind is just unforgivable screenwriting. I did not understand what the hell I was watching here. It really, really, really was crazy. Now, with that said, overall, and guys, I want you to know, I thought long and hard about this before I sat down and make this video. I even slept on it. And I woke up this morning and I said to myself, are you really going to do this? But I have to give this movie a 40%. That's right, a 4.0 out of 10 if you're thinking IMDb score, right? So despite what the aggregates are saying, that's a resounding F for a letter grade. Listen, guys, I sat through this movie so you wouldn't have to. And I truly, truly mean that. And in fact, this movie proves that it's who you know in Hollywood, not what you know, that makes you successful. Because I'm telling you, there's no way in the world that a burgeoning screenwriter or filmmaker walked into anyone's office pitching this movie without Dylan O'Brien and Rachel McAdams already attached, and it ever manages to see the light of day. There's no way this film gets made without some serious rewrites happening if it was anybody that was on the outside of the industry already. And look, the concept of this story isn't anything new. We've seen movies like this before, and that's what I mean. There were so many directions this movie could have gone in, but this was the most ridiculous take on a man and a woman get stuck on a desert island I think I've seen in recent memory. And look, I'm sure that the ladies will like this one because it's just a white woman torturing a straight white man who's a bit of an asshole for 2 hours. But if those same people were to sit down and use their brains to just think for a second, critically, they too would have to come to the conclusion that this movie was ridiculously horrible. It was comically horrible. And I say all of that to say that if you're a woman who just wants to go to the movies and see a man get tortured for a bit, then I guess this film will be worth the cost of admission, whatever the cost of admission might be in the city in which you live. But if you're a guy and you're not being forced to go to this movie with your significant other, stay far, far, far away from this movie. But what do you guys think? Have you had a chance to go see Send Help yet? If you have, do you think the writers wrote themselves into a corner with the film's setup? Did you feel like we were watching the two main characters do the same thing over and over again during the film? What did you think of the characters? What did you think of the film's ending? Let me know in the comments. And for those of you that might be new to the channel, be sure to like and share this video. If you really like the content, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. That way you'll be notified whenever I drop a new video. You can also now support the channel by leaving a super thanks. If you should be so inclined, I'd greatly appreciate it. Also, feel free to subscribe to my main channel and my shorts channel for additional content. The links are in the description. In addition to that, be sure to go and check out themadScreenwriter.com for more television and film reviews and info on my upcoming film projects. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. I got screenplays to write. And I'll catch y'all on the next video.